welcome back. Well, in the wake of the flooding in KwaZulu-Natal, there's still that huge conversation around climate change. Today is World Earth Day. It's a day when we're supposed to remember the world, the fact that we only have one planet, and work against climate change. Of course, we can't just do that on one day. We've got to do it all the time. Climate change is becoming, I think, more and more urgent. Dr. Jako Volschnek is from the Stellenbosch Business School. He's been looking at this. Dr. Volschnek, good afternoon to you. You believe we need to stop using fossil fuels. How urgently do we need to do that?
Hi, Stephen. Well, I think that the sooner the better. I think if we could have done it yesterday, that would have been quick enough. It's a complex system, as environmental issues usually are. I think it's impossible for any country in the world at this point to just switch off fossil fuels immediately without impacting probably the poor more than anyone else. But the short answer is that if we look at we've got about 2030 to try and turn the ship around. The carbon budget that we have available to us is about the same amount as what we've emitted in the last 10 years. So it gives you so the full carbon budget we have available to stop catastrophic climate change is what we've done in the last 10 years. So there's great urgency to it. I think what we're seeing with Natal is just the start of it, and we're going to be seeing much more of that.
I'm going to come to that in a moment, but I mean, what you're suggesting is we have, what, 8 years to basically put a solar panel on every single outside flat surface and close down Medupi and Kusile. Now, look, I'm with you with closing down Medupi and Kusile because, frankly, they haven't been much use to me. But, I mean, do you really think we can make that big a change in that quick a time?
Stephen, I think it's not a question that if we can. I think if we want to, we should. There are certain challenges associated with that. I think if we would immediately close down all coal power in South Africa, our economy would certainly take a deep dive. I think many more people will die immediately in the next 10 years if we do that than people will probably in South Africa in the longer run with climate change. But, or rather, let me restate that. I think if we don't do something, we should stop having children today.
Is government doing enough? And I think I know what you're going to say when I put that question. Is government doing enough?
No, I don't think so. I don't think government is doing enough. It's very difficult for people to change. I wouldn't want to be the President Ramaphosa at the moment. It's very difficult for people to change. We need to change our energy system, our transport system, our food system. There's a lot that needs to change if we would like to make that change. However, we won't. It's almost impossible. There's this thing called the free rider behavior. If I start cycling to work to save the environment, my neighbor still gets the benefit. In fact, my neighbor now has an open road. So that limits people's willingness to do something when they know that other people will benefit that are doing nothing about it. So government needs to put policies in place so that everyone is required to do something. We need to do something about our food system, about our transport system. And as you say, we need to put solar panels on every roof. Before we need to put solar panels on every roof, we need to limit the amount of energy that any household can use. At the moment, rich households use exponentially more than poorer households. So we need to bring that down, and that will force rich households to decide on what the essentials are.
Well, everyone's essentials are the same, to make sure that DSTV works. I think sometimes government is maybe becoming less important to this than it used to be. And before you sort of go, what on earth is Stephen saying, let me explain. Some companies are going to start producing their own electricity. I mean, some industrial companies where they can, the mines are going to do that. They're going to produce their own electricity. I was talking to Professor Samson Mampweri yesterday. You'll know him. He's in the same institution that you are. He was making the point that even in some cases, even illegally, people are setting up their own grids using solar panels because they're just tired of government. I would also suggest that the consumer effect, if you want to produce a product, if you want to design your product in California and manufacture it in China, you're still going to have to convince your consumer in San Francisco or in Sandton that it's made responsibly. And what that means is that we're actually going to see governments becoming less important with regard to climate change because people with children, I'm one of them, are going to demand it.
I agree with you. I think, as with security in South Africa, it's been given to the private sector. I think we're seeing to a large extent that private sector is taking on the need for energy, the shortage of energy. For us to run our businesses, we need it. We've done that at the business school as well. So certainly I think that's happening. I think what we should warn against is if Eskom keeps raising the prices, and there's a reinforcing loop there. With prices that increase, more and more companies are saying, but hang on, I can do solar more cheaply. And what happens is that the top part of the market that was subsidizing your free basic electricity, if that part starts disappearing, the carrying power becomes less and less, and we have to increase the price more and more, which means that even more companies would say, hang on, I can do this myself. So we are running a very thin line, and we could potentially collapse the whole system if we keep doing that. So we need to work with Eskom. There's no scenario in which we can completely go without Eskom. We need its network, and maybe there was wisdom by the President to say, let's disaggregate Eskom into the different functions. But I agree with you. Private sector will probably take over a lot of this, and in fact also in terms of environmental services. If you think about just climate data in South Africa and how under pressure South Africa Weather Services is to supply that, the renewable energy industry has for years been using their own data because source can't supply that.
Dr. Jako Volschnek, thanks very much indeed at the Stellenbosch Business School. Really do appreciate the time. It's an important conversation.